So debriefing on TypeScript yesterday, I know that there was a lot of in-depth technical information there. Um, Ryan and I share similar thoughts in that TypeScript is important to have exposure to, maybe not the most important thing to learn as a beginner. And whenever I have entered a team that is using it, it has been this moment of dread of like, oh God, we're adding complexity to already something that is complex, which is JavaScript itself. Do we really need to be doing that, right? And so I went back and forth of, well, should we be teaching it? Should we be including it? Should we be skipping it? And the reason why I did end up saying, hey, let's devote a whole class to it is because I think it's something that even though only a 5% of it may have sunk in, it's good to get that exposure so that a year from now, if you start working at an employer and they go, oh, we're switching over to TypeScript, you've got a video that you can go back to and kind of see all of that stuff. So I just wanted to yes, Joe posted in the chat more cons than pros to use as at this point in our education. Yes, I would agree with that, right? But why did we spend time on it in the first place? If that's the case, it's because throughout your entire technical career, you are going to hear the next best thing, right? You're going to have that grass is greener syndrome where they're going to say, oh, there's this new technology, this new language, this new framework, this new package. It's better than what already exists. And part of being a developer is saying, okay, well, before I can make that decision, I need to know what it's similar to, what I already know to base those skills off of. I need to be able to do a little test project where I'm able to compare that. And then I need to work on a big enough project where I can fully test it out and actually come up and form an opinion on it. And so that's why we spent time on TypeScript yesterday in order to give you kind of a taste of that, right? Because a lot of people are diehard TypeScript fans. We actually had an instructor back in cohort 2 who said, I don't feel comfortable teaching JavaScript. I think it is ethically wrong to teach anything other than TypeScript, and I refuse to teach it unless I can teach TypeScript. I'm not kidding you. That was literally cohort 2, like 2 years ago. And so there are diehard fans of it. And the reason why we have included it in the curriculum this time around is because it is a growing population of people who really love it. So anyway, just wanted to give you some context as to why we spend time on it. Seems to me, Joe posted in the chat, it seems to me that if more companies push harder to just rip the Band-Aid off, it may be better for the industry in the long run. That being said, sounds like an L take from the instructor. I happen to agree so, which is why I stepped in and taught regular JavaScript instead. Industry support is getting better for it. The real reason I struggle with integrating it into the curriculum is that it's additional syntax. And so if you think at the beginning of HTML, you were getting tags, you were understanding nesting, that was kind of new for you, but like the syntax kind of clicked, right? And then same for CSS. Okay, classes, IDs, curly braces, these styles apply to these things over there, that kind of clicks. Now we level up another step and we get into JavaScript. In JavaScript, you're looking at reserved words, const, let, function, all of those. You're looking at parentheses for parameters. You're looking at curly braces for objects, but then also for blocks of code like for loops. You've got parentheses in for loops. You've got all of these little syntax things. That's a lot to learn, right? And so TypeScript to me is like, oh, let's take that syntax and add even more syntax on it for you to learn. And on paper, those TypeScript benefits sound great, right? Oh, this is fantastic. I accidentally put a string into something that should only be a number, and my code's going to tell me about that error message before I can even test it and see that it's a problem. Well, yeah, but in order for your code to be able to do it, you need to tell your code what type it's going to be. And at a certain point, how much time are you spending putting in error checking on your types in order to get faster errors when you're working with those variables down the line? And so you will always have people who have very strong opinions, right? You will always have people who argue for a typed language versus a dynamically typed language. TypeScript is kind of interesting because it's that middle ground where they took a dynamically typed language and they added static typed variables right on top of it. So it kind of went in reverse there. We had dynamic and then we went back to static typed. Anyway, uh, I promise I'm not going to spend class on TypeScript part 2 here. Just wanted to give you guys exposure to it and kind of throw that out just so that you have context for TypeScript as a whole.
That should say int.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so TypeScript in the rear view mirror here, looking forward towards today. So I would like to make today a capstone day. So if you have some burning generic questions that you would like to ask, I'm happy to answer them, but I'm going to encourage you guys focus on making today kind of an open capstone work day. We will do attendance now before I forget. The attendance word for tonight's class will be capstone. So go ahead, do attendance. Attendance tonight, the word is capstone. You are also able to work at this time on any past due homework assignments. So if there's one assignment that you're really stuck on and need a little boost to get going, homework is also totally fine to work on today. And then the last thing I will say is I'm going to encourage everyone to, if you have questions about your capstone, ask them in the main room. Because what we have found time and time again is where you are stuck on your capstone is probably a very good chance where someone else is stuck on their capstone, but they don't know how to ask the question. So just having you guys ask the question can be really helpful for your fellow students to kind of see where to get going. And this class is totally fine to also say, like, I'm just stuck. Like, I don't even know what to do. What is life? Why am I in this program? What is my capstone, right? And I can help you, believe it or not, even at that level of trying to get going. Maybe not what is life, but what is life as a boot camp student who's trying to make a capstone. That I can help with. That being said, if you are not comfortable asking your question or feel like you would be better in a breakout room, I'm also happy to move us into a breakout room and kind of work one-on-one with it. I'm going to try and limit everyone's capstone questions to like 15 to 20 minutes at max, just so that everyone gets a chance to ask them. And that's going to be very close to the way that we run the last week of the program, where it's kind of just rapid fire capstone questions. And I'm going to just get you unstuck enough that you can do the next step. And then if you get stuck an hour down the line, I jump back in with you and kind of go from there. Capstone check-in is tomorrow. So a couple of reminders. The goal is to have basically show me that you have momentum in your React code. So tomorrow's check-in will be the first time that I want to see a couple of files of your code, and I want to see it running in the browser, right? And so I know the Capstone check-in document basically says have the majority of your code moved over into React. It's more important that you're doing it right than it is that you have half of your pages moved over. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you have a page and your nav bar is on all 4 pages that you're trying to make, I would much rather you see you have a nav bar component and use that nav bar component on 2 or 3 pages than just say, look, I've moved everything over to React, but it's just barely moved over to React, right? So start thinking about reusable components, start thinking about your data and your data structure, start thinking about using state, and then also, of course, moving the HTML over class to class name, all of that good kind of stuff. So do it right. All I want to see tomorrow is a little bit of momentum. What do I mean by momentum? You've got your project set up. You've got a router installed if you think you need it. You've got 2 or 3 components moved over. You've got a couple pages set up. You're reusing a component somewhere. That's all kind of where we want you to be for tomorrow. Either during the second half of class or more likely the second half of tomorrow's class, I'm going to touch on iCloud NoSync. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of SourceTree, which is a GitHub desktop alternative that I use. We may do an advent of code problem just to kind of see, wrap up JavaScript, see how I would approach a technical interview style question. And then we also have breakpoint debugging that came up during Monday's class. So I have all of that on my radar. We'll see how far we get on each one of those by the end of the week. I may pepper them in as we have more time, but all of those are coming down the pipeline, either second half of class today or tomorrow. Does anyone have logistics questions before we get into Capstone? Okay. It is ridiculously hot in the room that I am in, so I am going to grab a fan. I will be back in 2 minutes, and then I will be ready for your capstone questions. Use this as a working day, and feel free to DM me in the Zoom chat if you would like to go out into a breakout room, or if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand in Zoom, and I'll just go in the order that hands are raised. I will be back in 2 minutes. Okay, I am now ready for questions whenever you guys have them.
I have one.
Shoot.
Okay, let me share my screen first. Do you know how to make a line for this? Like the holding line here, or such like this one.
Yes.
I try my just use a regular one, like kind of weird though. I just have code, kind of a little bit weird.
Yeah. Take me to that section of your code, and then I will request remote access and see. I'm thinking we can do that kind of with a div
Yeah.
and actually 3 divs and a border and a margin
Okay.
is going to be what I'm going to attempt. So that is, where is your dashes with the or?
Oh, is right here.
Ah, okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna do this as a div, and then I'm gonna do 3 divs inside of it, and I'll throw a class name of the, oh, we can do inline styles because it's React. So let's do and then if we do something like width 90%, and then we do border on the top of 1px solid black, and then we do a margin on the top of 5 pixels. Oh, I meant to do 40, and then reuse that down here. Okay, and then on the parent, you just have to display flex it. Okay, on the right track. Is my margin not working though? Oh, yes, it is. Okay. So let's try this. Let's do a space on either side of the or. And then let's bump this, let's go 45 each. And close.
Wow,
What do you think?
great.
And then the last thing you can do to you could do this as a align items space between, and that should just spread them out a little bit, and I think you're good to go. Of
Thank you.
course. CSS is one of those things that like it feels hacky, but sometimes you just have to get hacky in order to make it look the way you want it to. Okay, pulling up the chat. Command space for Apple Spotlight, which is like how you can type things in quickly, and then Command Tab for switching between windows. And emojis control Command space, and if you wanted something other than that, let me know. Joe, I'm ready to help you with Prettier.
Whoa. And expand zoom. So you can see all the controls again. So here's the thing going on, but that can wait. It says it's working. Okay. Last time I checked, it said it synced with Yeah, my laptop. We like go back to. What that would be.
If you just like shift tab a line to move it over and save, it should re-indent it. And it is not. So Yahtzee.
Oh, so I had the on change, but not the.
Oh, boo.
No, do I have on change on, or did that not?
Now you have it on format on save for the file. You're definitely saving
Or on
the
focus change, I guess.
Anwar, there's no live share link tonight because we're just working on capstones. And the secret word for attendance is capstone. So why is that not? It's seeing that it's JavaScript. I'm gonna quit your VS Code and reopen it.
Is that going to mess with GitHub Desktop at all? You should save all the
It's-
changes in there, right?
It shouldn't. If that's screwing with GitHub Desktop, your GitHub Desktop is really screwed up.
I think I fixed it though. Fingers crossed. I haven't had any other issues since I removed everything and put it back.
Good. Although this is taking a suspiciously long time to open things. Let me just do. Why does your prettier hate you? Loading IntelliSense status.
Oh, wait. Yeah, remove IntelliSense. That
Well,
shouldn't
but
format the code though. It's not a linter, is it?
then there are multiple formatters for JavaScript files. One of them should be configured as the default formatter.
Yeah, but IntelliSense isn't a formatter. It does autocomplete, or does that count as a formatter?
They're just, if you go into settings and formatter, there's a default formatter, and some of these are like already built into VS Code, but they don't work nearly as well as Prettier does. And so I just set it in JavaScript itself. I set it to Prettier, and you could technically set it to any other one, but now that it's set to Prettier, you should see that these are working now.
Awesome. All right, and now part two of my wonderful questions. We solved this once before at an open hack, and then I converted everything and went off of an old file after I lost everything. And I don't know what we did to fix this.
Yes.
This isn't. Hold on 1 second. I think when we close that out, that didn't.
You guys can't hear the fan in the background, can you? I know it's really close to the mic. Okay, cool.
Actually, no, I don't think I changed anything. Let's change this back to 6.
So may I?
Yes.
I think
There's no body. I mean, I know it can recognize the bodies there. There's no explicit body tag though.
there is in index.html.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I'm just throwing everything in there. That's right.
Not that I mean to inspect your body, but it is right there.
Ha 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 ha.
Okay. I think that should, if it's running, fix it. I know the run isn't actually necessary for the start command, but a lot of projects will use npm run dev instead of npm run start, which is used for production. So I'm just so
Does it
muscle
bog down
memory.
like this when this only really happens when I'm screen sharing with you? So is it Zoom that's making VS Code crap out when I'm trying to compile stuff? Because usually it takes like 3 seconds.
Yeah, well, like I don't know what's going on with this initializing JSTS. Like,
Do
what's
you have to
that
set some
doing?
do you have to set something for SCSS?
TypeScript and JavaScript language features extension.
We can just delete half of these extensions out. Let's get rid of everything. Yeah, go ahead and just
Well,
on it.
that's not even enabled, so that shouldn't be a problem.
What are your
I don't
advanced
even know
servers?
where that extension is.
Ghost extensions. This is what I've been dealing with all week.
I really thought that iCloud was causing the problems. Um,
You know what happened? I think at one point we were doing a live share and I accidentally clicked sync all settings for VS Code to make it I was like looking through stuff to see and I didn't finish reading it. Um and that's when it all went downhill.
I've seen VS Code get funky, but never like this funky.
Well, right from the 60s.
Because now like VS Code is like, no, we're good. I'm not doing anything in the background.
What if I just nuke VS Code?
Uh, you could, but depending on what's syncing, it could just come back.
Well, then we would know that it's something within my settings then.
No, see, your file provider D is still flipping out. So this has to be an iCloud thing because file provider D is iCloud. So
Why is it
sorry,
back syncing again?
can you drag that window over?
Yes. Why is this in here?
Uh,
Hold the line. Go right under that. That should be in the GitHub folder. I don't know why it's in C6. Because if that's the case, that would make sense.
there you go. It's in VS projects, which is in your documents folder.
C6 it is, but that shouldn't this project shouldn't be in that folder. This folder should be in GitHub.
Yeah, but your Capstone React, if I PWD, it's in my C6 my code assignments, Capstone React.
How the hell did that happen? Oh, I know what happened.
Do you have 2 copies of it?
Okay. Yep. And I must have not looked at the whole root when I was cloning everything back down. So I was just like breezing really quickly, and I think I forgot to delete the original copy.
So just for testing the height thing, I'm going to no sync this as well because we're going to keep on working on node projects that have node modules. And for anyone else in class who's paying attention, we're going to show the no sync thing tomorrow. Because installing it was a little funky. And now that it's set to no sync, I bet you it's still running in the background for other shit.
Sorry.
I did no sync it because the cloud is crossed off. All right, so Try it one more time. Wait. I think it just takes time for the syncer to.
Can you manually force quit that action?
I can, but I'm kind of afraid to.
Well, if I disappear suddenly, we'll know why.
Thanos got you?
Yep.
Got it.
That's what happens when you delete the file provider.
No, it probably just restarted. Yeah, it did.
What if I
Might need to restart.
yeah, let me I'll be right back.
Okay, bye. Other capstone question. Quickly before Joe can restart.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I've been having problems with like my images on mines, like when like trying to move them into
Okay.
yeah.
You want to share your
Hang on.
screen? We can work through one of them and then you can rifle that through on the rest.
Yes. Give me 1 second. Oh, that's why.
The restart function crashed.
It's two.
I'm just gonna unplug it.
I had someone try and restart their laptop on Monday and everything was like completely frozen. And so they went to hold down the button and they're like, I've been holding down the restart button for 30 seconds now and I'm still in Zoom. How am I supposed to make this thing shut down? It was Windows. Okay, you're going to be infuriated at how close you are because you did put the images in the right spot in the public folder. All you need is a slash before the word IMG in the code itself. So line 21, yep, right there, put a slash in and save. And okay, I thought it was going to be as simple as that. Let me request remote and take a look. So first, just to make sure you're on the right page, I'm going to throw a 1 there and that shows up. Okay, so image. Okay, so your files aren't in here. Your files are down in here. So if you're using the SRC as a string and not as a curly brace, what we need to do is put the folder up in the IMG. And we're going to do everything up there as well. And then take them out of here. And then React sometimes gets cranky about moving files while the server is running. So we're going to restart them. And then in src app.css, there was an image in here. That we're going to put up there. Oh, crappers. Okay, I'm going to put just the CSS and React is a little funkier about file paths. And then that was pages. IMG pages. Does it want it not with a slash because it's relative?
Oh, okay.
So let me explain that a little bit. If we're using images in CSS that React is basically importing for us, they have to be in the SRC folder. If we are using the images in a React page and we aren't using the curly braces here, we're passing just the string of the image, we put them up in the public folder instead.
Okay.
So it's a weird, I know that that's complicated because it's like both answers are kind of right. So it just depends on where you're using the image, basically.
And like I got like one teensy little thing.
Yeah.
So you notice like this, like the font is not looking like this. I don't know how do I make this kind of like, like the font family, because I tried like the font family with the CSS, but it seemed like it doesn't work. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. Okay, so I'm gonna look at your app.css. And you did it on what did I just see? The font family.
Yeah,
You did it on the H1, so we should just be able to copy this. And that was on just a P tag. So you've got ID latest version. Let's find your latest version, which you also have on a class, but that class does not apply here. Okay, so latest version here is all inside the link. So because you don't have a class, because this isn't in a class called link, it's not getting applied.
Oh.
So if we actually take this link out, it does something. It's not that exact font though, is it? So let's try. I think this actually should all come out. There we go.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna move that up to the top here. And you're good to go.
Thanks.
All right, Joe, you're back up.
Guess who's back? Back again. Hopefully for the last time. Okay, so I didn't even open everything, so we can go through this from the beginning. If you want to open it through the GitHub or through the assignments folder in C6.
So
Initially, when we were working on it, yeah.
now this
Wait,
one.
did you say you said that was showing the folder and that's what it brought you to?
Yeah, in GitHub.
Why was the other one in? Well, you know what? Whatever. Forget it.
Now this one is also still set to sync.
Why?
That's not set to no sync.
There's the error.
I'd like to deadlock you right now.
See, I did that and I sent that to you last night. I closed that error out. I closed VS Code, hit no sync again, and then it let me no sync GitHub, but maybe it never ended up going through because I saw the cloud with the X through it, and then.
Well,
maybe this is a sign.
Does that open an Automator? Yeah, it does. I hate shell scripting. No sync, file name, if name, change flag. All right, let me just look up how to do it manually.
Does it have to be applied to, or no, it's, file name equals name no sync. But you should be able to apply it to a directory.
Is to name it TMP or end it with
Because we didn't end the folder name with that
.temp.
TMP.
You know, I am half a second away from just telling all students to not enable iCloud Drive.
And just to be clear, this is originating from it having to interact with Node in this way, since there's like 1.5 million files in there.
Correct.
Okay. Can we tell React to look somewhere else for the folder for Node, and we can make a copy of Node and have it look for the copy on the desktop every time, or wherever we send it to that's
Well,
not syncing to iCloud?
The problem is iCloud and documents sync to iCloud.
So there is no local version of anything?
The local version and the cloud version are just kept in sync if it is in documents and iCloud, a desktop or document. And so if you go to iCloud Drive, the problem is there's no way to tell it like avoid this folder. And so if you look in iCloud, it just says keep everything in sync. And it says desktop and documents. And so because that is in your documents folder, it is automatically syncing it. Because if you go up to your home level and then if you go into documents, why aren't your documents here?
That's also
oh, because they're in iCloud Drive.
Oh.
So and the reason why I'm so hesitant is last time I turned off desktop and documents folders, people lost things. And that's not supposed to happen. And they didn't do anything wrong, but they lost it.
Well, we can put everything in a repository, and it deleted it out of iCloud.
They lost it. They lost like half a course's worth of code.
Wait, what if we have can we tell, because you can tell it to run from like pulling a framework or a library like Bootstrap in by linking to an index. Could we do something with a folder that way?
No, because Node modules is project specific and it needs to be in the same folder as the package.json. So the real thing is, I think the right answer is to say, just don't sync my desktop and documents to iCloud.
Don't sync you. Okay, so because I'm just worried this is all my personal stuff that's on there. I just don't want to lose it out of iCloud. I don't care if I lose it off of like if it stops syncing.
Yeah, it will stay in iCloud. It just won't stay in, it won't sync to the computer. So basically, in order to access it, you will have to go to the iCloud Drive folder directly instead of being able to go into documents from here.
What about manually backing it, like turning it off and then manually backing it up while we're,
That's
or we can
that's
turn,
fine.
yeah,
You just
Okay.
can't run it locally. You
okay, so
can't
while I'm
run
doing,
projects in from iCloud.
right, so if I want to use the sync features while I'm not coding, I can turn desktop and document folders back on, and then as soon as I start coding, turn that off and download the folder again that I'm trying to work in.
I don't think toggling that on and off will be,
A good
I
idea.
think that's going to cause headaches. I think you're going to end up with duplicates and things out of sync and all of that stuff. What you can do though, is whenever you're working on files, just open it from iCloud Drive and work on the files from here. Your coding files won't be in iCloud Drive. So basically what will happen is the desktop and documents folder here will get loaded onto your home folder in here.
Right.
And then if
So-
you want to manually sync things over, you can go into iCloud Drive and copy them in.
Now, did I do something wrong and drag my documents folder into iCloud Drive? Should it not be in the user folder?
No, because they're getting synced, it moves it from the home folder into the iCloud Drive folder.
I got you.
So by turning that off, it will move it back from iCloud Drive into your home folder, and then you would manually move things into iCloud Drive that you want it to be there.
So would I lose access across other Apple devices? Because this is not on my laptop. This is on my Mac Mini. So if I turn it off here, shouldn't it also turn it off on the laptop too, and then move it?
No, it's device specific.
Oh. So would I then also have still we'll basically just copy documents back down? I'll have documents on Joseph Smith and documents in iCloud.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we're here for a good time, not a long time. Let's go ahead and shut it off then.
Go for it. And it should give you an option. Go ahead. And then we'll be. Yeah, so it's basically saying it's going to keep everything in Drive. And then if you want to move it back to your desktop, you can.
Okay. So go ahead and turn off.
Yep. Okay. And now you should see this as your desktop back, but it's empty. And then it will have your documents back and it's empty. But you'll notice it says local up here. So if you go back into iCloud Drive and look at your documents, everything is still in here. And your desktop, everything is still in here. So if you needed to move stuff back to local, which is what you want to do for your GitHub, now when you put them back in desktop and documents, they won't sync.
Hold the phone. Okay, so this is my Windows brain that I've grown up on, where it's been Windows like 7 and 10 before cloud got pushed to every device. Where it had a local version, you had like something like a C or a G drive or something, or your OneDrive account. This is how my mind was working, and I thought that's how it did work. I would prefer it this way so that I can manually sync things.
Correct. So now we should go to your documents and this view and your GitHub and copy it. And I'm going to put it onto your desktop.
Before you do, there might be some projects with no modules in there.
That's fine. It's just going to take a little bit longer to copy.
40,000 items. So 3 minutes, I think.
Okay, that's not too bad. So
2
let
minutes.
that run, then try and open it from VS Code in there. And then I think that will fix all of your sync issues.
All right. Yeah, I like this. Having control over what's syncing and not, like, I mean, yeah, it's great when stuff is just automatically over there.
Well, and most of the time that automatic sync works fine. The problem is when you're working with node modules with 40,000 files that are literally executing all at the same time. That's what iCloud struggles with.
I
So
wish they had more granular control over syncing and stuff natively.
that's the thing with Apple. It's supposed to just work. And for the vast majority of users, it does just work. But Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, and iCloud all have problems with node modules because there are so many little files.
Right.
So some of them are better than others to say, this is one folder I don't want to sync. It shouldn't be hard to not sync one folder. But Apple is like, nope, just magically all works behind the under the hood. So question for the entire class. Does anyone else have, I'm going to bump your screen share just so the class can see it. For the whole class, if you go into system settings, click on your name in the top left, go to iCloud, then click on iCloud Drive. Here, it's okay for iCloud Drive to be on, but desktop and document folders should be off. Does anyone have that on? If you have that on, again, Apple system settings, name in the top left, click on iCloud Drive right here, and then in the middle it says desktop and document folders. Raise your hand if you have that turned on. And Joe, I don't want you to feel bad because this happens to someone every cohort. I just haven't had a good solution to just not turn it off, basically.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that I understood how all the files were moving between each other.
Yep, makes sense. Okay, so everyone else has this setting turned off, or at least iCloud Drive turned off as a whole. Okay, cool.
Hey, just wasted 15 minutes of class.
It's good. 15 minutes was under my my limit. I said 15 to 20. Okay. Yeah, one final time for the steps. It's Apple system settings. Click on your name in the top left, iCloud, iCloud Drive, and then desktop and documents folders is off. Or should be off.
So, I just tried to open, I relocated so it downloaded the desktop. I hit locate in GitHub desktop to try and find it there. And then I just opened the thing and there was a pop-up that says Visual Studio Code 3 wants to access files managed by iCloud Drive. Is that just what they call
You can
all
hit
the file
okay on
management
that.
system?
No, it's just saying, hey, if you want VS Code to find things in iCloud Drive, you have to
Gotcha.
allow it. But you will hit allow, and then you'll find it not in iCloud Drive. You'll find it on the desktop instead.
All right. So now back to my original question.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, can you restart your screen share? Sorry. I keep on
Yes.
forgetting that you can screen share two things at once now.
So over here on the main screen now, move this somewhere else. Cool. All right.
And request remote. And now all we should have to do is in our app.
There might actually not be anything in there, and that's fine. If you go into pages, login, rename that to login.scss.
Why do
'Cause there's nest-
you need SAS?
It would, oh, you know what? It's fine. It's not giving an error right now because node modules is still in there because it didn't quit properly. So we don't need to re-download it. I had it in there because it was giving me problems with nested CSS and React for some reason. But it doesn't look like it's airing out anymore.
Interesting. Didn't know that could potentially be a problem. Okay. Why do you have no background color?
Yeah. Well, hang on, wait, we didn't even change anything, so I don't even know why that's happening. Is it calling in login.js properly? It should, because that's what's calling the rest of that, right? CSS, yeah.
Are you overriding it on another CSS file?
Shouldn't be. You can look at index.css, or that doesn't, no, because that would be in login.js.
Yes.
Or no, CSS. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is that calling from login?
CSS files are not scoped to the file that you import that.
Oh.
Where is that here?
Yes.
And
okay, well that would make sense. Okay, so what's the proper way to do that? Inline styling?
hold on, let's get it fixed. Okay, well, the background color is in there, but there's something else that's turning it white. Your container fluid also is white.
Okay.
Okay, so that fixes that. The way that I normally do it is I'll throw an ID all the way up here. And this is a good reminder for everyone. When you are working on your CSS, just because it's imported here doesn't mean the CSS will only get applied to this page. So what I like to do is add an ID here and then nest all of my CSS in here. So in here, I would say something like this, and then put all of these in it. And now this container fluid will only apply because it has that ID.
Is prettier not working again? Or does it not matter in CSS?
Prettier is not running because we only set the default formatter for JS. We didn't set the default formatter for all files. So if we change that to prettier, you're good to go.
Okay, so I can change this back to CSS then. What's the difference? Is it just in like native JavaScript?
Yeah, so native CSS didn't used to support nested CSS, and it also didn't used to support CSS variables. And so SAS built a lot of those functions in before native CSS did, but it does have a slightly different syntax. So you can think of SAS to CSS as TypeScript is to JavaScript. But
Okay.
because a lot of the features are now built in, we don't use, I don't teach SAS anymore. We still have projects that use it, but it's just not as required.
All right, so I can go back and change that then because it doesn't seem like it's causing any issues.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah,
Other
no, it's actually-
questions? Um, what's it complaining about? Oh, just command slash that, or you can leave it in now that it's scoped to the. And then, yeah,
Alrighty. Now I'm over.
Joe is blocked from any more questions until after break.
Tough but fair.
Yeah, I got a question. What were we, what I need to use the link tab for like you know how like I usually like click on an image and take you to like another like HTML. Like, do I need to use the link tag, or do I need to? Okay.
Link tag. Yep. With a capital L. Well, no one else has questions, so go ahead, Joe.
So rename it to my cohort. All right, this one should be good. You see the right screen?
Yes.
So this is this is where the component is for the nav bar. Not that any of this is going to work correctly, but that's not really the point right now. It's not showing up at all. So if we go into here, we go somewhere like the dashboard, which is what this page is, and it's here, it's being returned. It should be right up here. And at one point I did see it, and then I moved it into components, and but this should be fine because it's going back one, back another one, and into components.
Yeah, if the path is incorrect, it's going to error out in the terminal. So it's probably not a path issue. Let me request remote. And again, I just want to make sure we're in the right file. So, okay, we are in the right file. Look at your, in your nav bar.
Oh, it's not returning.
It's not returning, so that's your problem. And just like that, you've got your nav bar showing up.
Wow, thanks, Max.
I would have gotten there eventually.
Too many things going on. I couldn't figure out what the problem was with the rest of them, so I must have just given up.
Yeah, you're gonna feel like you got a whole new computer now that iCloud isn't syncing. You're gonna be like, oh, this is why everyone says Macs are so fast.
It's been fine otherwise. Like I haven't noticed like a huge issue. I mean, after running, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll let you know if I feel a butter smooth difference.
We'll just be in anything that had a node modules folder, which we're getting to the point will be every project from here on out.
Right. Yeah. I don't remember it taking a whole long time. At least with it like installing. So you mean like compiling stuff?
Yeah, running any file that had a node modules, basically.
Gotcha. I'll keep in mind. Also, what criteria are you looking for tomorrow's check-in?
Reusable components, some data in state, and momentum in your project to let me know that you're not afraid of React. The technical requirements, like what's in the document, says that you've got to have the majority of your pages moved over. I don't really care about the majority of pages. I want to just see that you have like reusable components in place. You've started to put a little bit of data in state, and that you've got momentum so that even if you only have 1 or 2 pages moved over, you've moved them over the right way. You've used the nav bar as a reusable component, that kind of stuff. So it doesn't need to be done by any means, but I just want to see that, you're not kicking the can on React and that you're actually making progress in that land. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Actually, I try to do that this way. The birthday have separate, like have month, so on, and I have this one I have like a line here, but my problem is like they cannot be like separated. They're all in the one column, and this one is showing in a white space, not a shadow in here, and then I have a problem for here. I don't know why is my background page is like only showing here.
Okay,
But they
so
having
let's solve those one at a time.
sure.
So let's start with the background because that's usually the easiest. All we need to do for that is up here on the div, we can set a min height, and you want to be careful because a lot of people will default this to height, and then it will start to scroll, and the scroll will basically break. So if you do a min height and set it to 100 VH, that should push it down on the rest of the page. So that fixes that. For date of birth, it depends. This select is actually, I don't want to say is pretty decent. If you wanted to do 3 separate inputs, what you would have to do is something like a div class row and then a select with options, and you'd have to do, Jan, February. And obviously I'm not going to do all of them right now. ChatGPT actually might generate them out for you a little quicker. And then we're going to do this in class name of col5. Put all of that in there. And then if we do that whole thing, and this one might actually be better to do as a text input, Well, depends. Do you want it to be a drop down or do you want it to be a text input?
Drop down.
Drop down. Okay. So we'll say select again, and we'll do 1, 2, and then and let's do a form control here and here. And of course, you can do labels on those if you wanted to. And then last one will be and I did not do math right. If we make this 4, 5, 0, 5, 4, that should give us a 3 down here. And we'll just say and then that gives you your drop downs to kind of load it up like that. Oh, and then your select down at the bottom. But does that give you a decent starting point for date of birth?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. And I can't remember, there may be Bootstrap CSS. There may be a better class name to use instead of form control. Form select is what you should use. Always forget that that one's different. There we go. That gets you your drop downs back. And then obviously you can play around with like column sizing to get them to size out right. Okay. And then for your select down here, step 1 out of 4. I'm gonna have to look at the documentation for that because I didn't even know that input type range was an element. Can we do a value of 1? Is that even a thing, or does it just take? So it does take value, so it's a styling issue. Okay. Slider itself. Right background, remove outline, set transparency. Does it just take a background color of orange? Nope, didn't think that was gonna work, but it was worth a try. I don't know that it's going to, I don't know that the built-in slider range supports like a 2 different color one. So I'm gonna have to work on that and get back to you.
Sure.
Um,
Oh, I can just leave it at that. It's fine.
does Bootstrap have a progress? Yeah, this is gonna be better for you. I'm gonna leave with this documentation and let you play with it. There's actually a better Bootstrap component to use called progress. Which does let you fill in the bar. And then they may even yeah, they let you play around with like labels. There's your different backgrounds example. And I don't know if they will let you do like a dot in the middle of it. But at least this will get you, allow you to set the bar to different widths and different colors. So that's what I would recommend using.
Sure. Thanks.
Of course. I knew there was a right answer, but I'm like, I don't think input type range is the right one. So glad to point you in the right direction. Okay, it is 7 o'clock. So let's go ahead and take a break. I will be back at 7:25 to continue answering your questions. And just as a reminder, it's completely okay if you're further behind, if you're still trying to get React set up, doesn't need to be super advanced, just here to help you out. So go on break, be back at 7:25. See you in a couple minutes. So Joe asked a really interesting question. It's a 10-minute tangent though, so I am going to save that for a second before I answer it. Does anyone have capstone questions, roadblocked anywhere, need help with anything before I show Joe and the rest of the class an alternative way to use Bootstrap? Okay, then let me show you a Bootstrap alternative. So I'm gonna go to my code. This is what, week 16. I'm gonna fire up a new React project. And npx create React app, and I'm gonna call it Bootstrap alternative. And I'm gonna pop that open in VS Code. Okay, so the way that we have always used Bootstrap in the past is we go into the public index.html and we put the link tag in here, right? And that is essentially pulling in the CSS that makes Bootstrap work so that when we use class row, class col, all of that kind of stuff, it pulls it in like regular CSS and we can use it. Okay, great, no problem. Well, there's also another way that we can use Bootstrap. And so what we do is inside our terminal, we're going to run a command. Okay. We can run a command that says npm install, and there's something called React wrap, which is specifically components that that Bootstrap uses that are imported into React. So if we do our npm start, we get our normal spinning React logo. But if we go into src, clear this out, if I wanted to throw everything in a container, I would normally do a div class name container, right? And that would work totally fine if we had the Bootstrap CSS file in. Instead, what we can do is actually import that from React Strap. So we can say import container from React Strap. Now, instead of using a div class name container, we can actually use that container as a component. We can also do that with rows and cols and say, hey, I'd like a row, and I will do a col with a MD4 and say left col, and then a col with an MD of 8. And then on those, we can still apply things like we normally would. So border 1px solid red, rename this to right col. And if we take a look at that, of course it didn't work. I border break it. New.
You need class name in there?
We have to import the Bootstrap CSS. So you have to install Bootstrap and install React Strap, and that makes it work. So this is an alternative. If this makes more sense to you, this certainly makes for cleaner code, right? Because we're not using class names to do all of our kind of Bootstrap components. What React Strap is doing is giving us access to the components directly without having to use those classes. So we do have to install Bootstrap itself. Then we can also install React Strap. Once we get this imported, we are able to import those components in and then use those components directly instead of setting up our own class names. So this is actually the way I use a framework at work called MUI. I happen to think that this makes for much cleaner code, but it's just an alternative way to be able to use Bootstrap components without using classes. So if this makes sense to you, you totally can use this. Then it is somewhat interchangeable. So I can actually change this out for a div class name row, and that will do the exact same thing and work. So this is just, again, just an alternative to doing something like div class name equals row.
Now, if I have it still in the index being like link to in the index, and then I install React Strap and
You
the
don't need
Bootstrap
to
library.
install Bootstrap if you have the link tag in place. So if the link tag is in place in index.html, all you would need is React Strap.
They won't, if I have both in there, they won't conflict with.
They won't
Unless
conflict,
if they're the
but
same version, right?
correct. Yeah, so they won't conflict, but there's really no reason to have them both in there. So I would stick with one or the other. There is a slight argument to be made that this version is a little bit better because it's now included in your dependencies list in your package.json. So when Bootstrap updates, it's going to be a little bit easier to run an update command and just bring this to the latest version. So that's slightly more efficient. And then there's an argument to be made of, is it better to serve your CSS with your app, or is it better to serve your CSS over a CDN, which will cause it to load a little bit quicker? Pros and cons to both approaches. But by doing this, you're basically bypassing the Bootstrap CDN and saying, hey, I'm going to use my own DevOps to serve the CSS.
Does that mean you have access to all the component files in Node then?
From React Strap, you mean these components?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you look in React Strap, you'll see that there are all of these components. And if we go to something like row, you can see what props it's taking and kind of how, and this is TypeScript itself. I'm not sure where they wrap the class name component. Let's look at col instead. So your XSSM, all of the props. I don't actually know where the component itself is, but this gives you a little context into what it's doing under the hood.
Is there any issues with it if say the next version of Bootstrap comes out and the package manager updates your dependency? Does that cause issues with how, if they make a major change to something, like there's a new major version?
Yeah, so this syntax in package.json, basically what install defaults to is saying if there is a new patch or minor version out, it is safe to update to them, but don't upgrade past the major version. The major versions are supposed to be the only ones that have breaking changes in them to existing code. Again, supposed to be. There are exceptions to that. So this caret here says it's okay to upgrade to a patch or a minor, but don't upgrade to the major. If you took this caret out, it would say 5.33 and only 5.33, never change that to make it exactly 5.33. And then there is a way to use a tilde as well. I forget what that means, but that's all using the semver or semantic versioning syntax.
So what did you, let me just get my commands to run. Okay, so you create React app like usual. So npx create React app, whatever.
Yep. You do an npm install Bootstrap if you want to install that directly instead of using the link tag, and npm install React Strap. And then in app.js, you have to import this CSS file from Bootstrap itself, and then you can import your components from React Strap.
That has to be an app.js, that import. Right.
Because CSS is global, you can import this really anywhere, but I would recommend that you would do it in app.js.
For code hygiene.
Code hygiene, yeah. And then this, you could you would likely be using an import React strap on almost every page, because you're going to be using rows and cols on every page. So this you would import in whatever file you needed those components in.
You can import. I guess that makes sense. You wouldn't want that to import something that you're using, but yeah, okay.
And again, if you're looking at this and you're like, like I get it, I understand it, it doesn't make my code much different. It's totally fine to skip React strap. React strap is certainly not a requirement. But to go back to your question, is ChatGPT crazy? No, it's not, but it didn't have the context knowing that you had or didn't have React strap installed. And so they scanned enough code on the internet to find projects that are using React strap, to think that that was just allowed out of the gate. What
Well,
they
hold
didn't
on
come back
now.
and say was,
Wait.
oh, you need to, if you are using the React strap package, you can use the components like this.
Oh, contraire, it was a me problem. I didn't
Oh,
scroll up. I didn't scroll up. So it says, here was my prompt. Using Bootstrap in React, can you make me some HTML using grid for create account? Nothing super fancy. I just need to test use state. Just trying to get it to generate some basic HTML for a form. And first, ensure you have Bootstrap installed in your React project. You can install it via npm install Bootstrap. Then import Bootstrap in your index.js or app.js file, import the CSS file. Now create account form, which is where I got the There's more in there. There's the import React container row col form and button from React Bootstrap, and then
React Bootstrap is a competitor to React Strap. I think they do the exact same thing. I haven't used React in long enough that I actually don't know which one I would recommend.
oh, they're different. Yeah, I didn't realize that. You said React Strap is the one that
React Bootstrap has 1.1 million weekly downloads. React Strap only has 500,000. So I would probably go for React Bootstrap instead. But they're both pretty similar. I would be very surprised if you notice a difference between the two of them.
I guess that's the trade-off is you're getting into trying to ensure that those dependencies are up to date and working, or are those pulling from Bootstrap themselves, or those updating, or does that rely on somebody individually updating all those components?
Bootstrap itself publishes to npm, so that would say up to date, and likely more up to date than you remembering to go back into the link tag and actually change the tag in the URL in index.html. So Bootstrap itself is managed and updated on npm. React Bootstrap and React Strap, I believe, are open source libraries. So there is theoretically a time that they would have to go in and update things in order to match what Bootstrap changes had been made. It is also possible that they are just using it almost as a pass-through, right? So they just pass all of that data on, and so if Bootstrap adds it, it will just magically work in React Bootstrap. But both enough are widely used and widely maintained that I wouldn't be discouraged in adding that in instead of using Bootstrap directly.
Gotcha.
And because they have big open source communities, whoever maintains Bootstrap, I think Twitter may still sponsor them, but I don't think it's like Twitter themselves anymore. I think they work pretty closely with other open source projects. So it's not like they would come out with like Bootstrap 6 without giving the open source communities a heads up and time to work on it and update their packages as well.
Gotcha. Good to know.
And if anyone wants that reference code, I just push it up to GitHub. You sure can, Austin. Go for it.
I'm stumped. I don't know if it's like the wording.
Remind me of the question.
It just says add a prop to page 2.
Okay. So you probably have so let me do it like this. That share the right screen. Can you see my React code?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So looking at this code, what is a prop? I'm using 3 different props in this code. Well, kind of 4.
It's the MD style and border, right?
Yeah. So this is a prop, right? So props have a key and they have a value. So you can think about them as like HTML attributes. Well, we also probably have something like create browser router right? Which is an array, and it's got a path of page 1 and an element of page 1. And then obviously we have page 2, right?
Mhm.
And then the theme provider and all of that stuff there. Where would we put a prop in our browser router?
Be in the element.
So we would just come in here and say some prop name equals some value.
Okay. I think I was just setting like out like what I was trying to do was just put some prop name and not giving it a value.
Yep.
So
That will do it.
thank you.
And then the next step will be, using that prop to actually get it to show up. But once you get that in, the second part might be a little easier.
Would I be able to get your help explaining a concept we've gone over before?
Sure can.
Okay. Let me just. That's stating that it's throwing that data that's being set there into an array that they don't know the length of, or that we don't know the length of yet, right?
No. So you're asking about the spread operator, the 3 periods?
Yes. Yeah.
It's saying take the existing form data and copy it into this new object.
Am I getting something confused with Java? What am I thinking? Or something is okay. Forget that.
Yeah, the 3 period says basically instead of putting the form data, which is an object, in my new object nested, instead of nesting it, spread all the existing data into my new object instead of nesting it inside of it.
Gotcha. Can you go over what the benefit or consequence of not doing that is?
Yeah, so set form data, your form data has 3 different key value pairs in it, right? Where the key is the name of the input and then the value is whatever got typed in. Well, we aren't allowed to modify the object directly because the object is in
That's right.
state.
I got you.
And so instead we take a copy of all the existing data and then update just the one key we care about.
That's okay. I forgot that this was up here.
Yes.
So it's essentially just copying the array of what was already in for that variable. You're copying that variable, right? And then
Correct. It's an
okay.
object in this case, but yes, spread operators work with objects or arrays.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's basically saying merge the existing object into the new object.
Would I might just have to set up a one-on-one with you. I'm in Utica on business trips. I got was there today, and I'm gonna be there tomorrow doing the state's releasing their new early intervention software. So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it to class tomorrow. So I was trying to see how I could do my Capstone demo. So
Yeah, I would say either schedule a one-on-one with me, and if it's early next week, that's also totally fine. I also have my Friday mostly blocked out, but will have some availability. So if you want to get it done and over with on Friday, just shoot me a Slack message, and when I have my schedule locked in, I can let you know like an hour or two beforehand when I'll be available on Friday, or next week I have plenty of availability as well.
I wanted to make sure. I'll probably be there tomorrow. This traffic was I was cutting very close today.
You can also just record. QuickTime has like a screen recording option.
Oh
If
yeah.
you want to record it and kind of like talk me through it, you can just send me that video in Slack, and that's also totally fine. And
Does
that
that
option goes for
use-
everyone.
Is that just doing this? Can you see that?
Yeah, QuickTime gives you a couple more options, but it's very similar to that.
What is QuickTime?
Uh, And then if you go File up at the top and New Screen Recording at the tippy top.
Oh, okay. Will that take audio too?
Yeah, if you click on it, it won't start it right off the bat. Oh, it literally triggers the exact same thing. Never mind. But yes, that will take audio if you set your microphone. Just don't forget to set your microphone.
Yes. I'll make sure to set it to my condenser in my AirPods. Never again. Side note, did you like how long it took me to do the quiz?
You still got it done right above about 50%.
The time limit on the thing. I was like, did I leave this open the whole time? Sure did. Over 24 hours.
Oh, I didn't even know. I didn't even know it was timed. I'm going in now to see if I can even see how long it took you to take the quiz. I'm sure it does. I just didn't even notice. And no, it doesn't tell me how. Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, I've just never noticed that. The attempt that I happened to pull up says this attempt took 15,120 minutes.
Probably mine. No, that can't be right. Somebody must have had it up for a week.
Oh yeah, your attempt only took 1,545 minutes. So yes,
Yeah. I was like, that seems right, but no, it's up by like a factor of 10.
obviously the time does not impact your grade.
Yeah, mine is 8,451 minutes. It's just a lot.
Everyone heard it's not due this Sunday and then promptly left the browser. Just realized I doxed my email sharing my screen. Sorry. Sorry, already sorts of junk in there.
You know, I have my email visible on screen all the time and it's not too bad. So I don't think it's really a problem.
Define too bad.
I mean, I get spam emails, but not like, not like the night after I'm like, oh no, my email was shown in the video on class. It's like chances are your resume is public or your emails, is findable in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, there's probably an easier way to go find it than scraping a YouTube video for text.
Something interesting that just popped up, and not naming any names, and you guys know that I am pro trying ChatGPT, but something interesting just happened. React Router about a year ago changed the way that you create the router and started using create browser router instead of passing in the routes as components. And so we are using the newer version of React Router, which is using the array, but the it's interesting. ChatGPT actually came back with an answer that was perfectly acceptable a year ago on the older version, but will no longer work on the newer version. So you always want to take your ChatGPT code with a grain of salt, because ChatGPT was confident that that was the right answer, and a year ago it was the right answer, but only if you were on the older version of the router. So just something to keep in mind there. Just because ChatGPT says it should work, don't have blind faith in it. It could totally be wrong, right? Just like you wouldn't expect me to give an answer that is always right every single time. ChatGPT can actually make more mistakes than a developer can. So just something to keep in mind.
When was that change made?
It was when React Router went from 5 to 6. So I want to say it was about a year ago. But I can probably let me ask ChatGPT when React Router 6 came out. November 8th, 2021. So I was way far off. It's been out for a while, apparently.
I don't remember if they ever updated 3. I'm assuming you're using 3.5.
I did for that question. I don't know what the student used who submitted this answer.
I'm assuming most people have the free version, which is 3.5. The knowledge
Yeah.
base for the one that I because I pay for it, like a nerd. GPT-4, and now I think 4.0 or 4.0 or whatever the hell they call it,
4.0.
has a knowledge base that is from April of 23. So people, if they're using it, should keep that in mind, that there's different knowledge bases of when they were updated last.
Yes. The other thing is, yes, the source knowledge definitely matters. I'm not disputing you there. The other part of that, though, is that it isn't, when it's scraping existing project code, it's not factoring in package versions from package.json. And so it's a really tough thing that even though the documentation is correct, they may have one source of the documentation, but there are probably 10 times as many React projects on 5.0 than there are on 6.0. And so it's weighing that information and going, oh, well, these are just two different ways of accomplishing the same thing. Let me just answer the question that way. And what it's not doing is weighing in, oh, this is a newer version of the code, so I should be using that instead, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, no, I agree there. I use it every day for all sorts of stuff, and the amount, even like the most updated version that can handle advanced tests, like even like miles better than 3.5. Still, like yesterday I was trying to have it check like the converting an equation for like the inverse of tangent, and it just completely like hallucinated a new form of algebra. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and I want to show there is a based off of Tiffany's question, I wanted to show like a really good example of this. So we were working on, hey, I want month, day, year to be 3 separate selects, right? And it would take a lot of time to generate that out. So what you could do is say like generate an HTML select for me with options for every month. And you can see that will give you copy and pastable code that is like immediately the ones that you want, right? And then say, great, do that again for days in the month. And obviously it will go through, I don't know why it's running slowly, but it will, there we go, generate out all of that for you. And you'd have to do some JavaScript logic to say, well, if February is selected, only make it 28. Check to see if it's a leap year, then make it 29. But it will very quickly generate this out for you in a way that you can just copy and paste it over. And then you could even ask it like, do that again for every year from 1925 up until this year. And it would generate out that giant list of options for you. So in React, it may actually be more efficient to generate this in a for loop. So you want to be careful with that. This makes more sense to do in a for loop for me. This makes more sense to do because it needs the month names. But this is a really great example of leaning into ChatGPT for something where you know the code is right, but it just takes time to do all of that. And of course, I'm sure you could go on Google and find someone who's done that already. But this is a great example of when to use ChatGPT.
I used it for all the I told it to give me a select where all the options are school districts in the state of New York, languages that are recognized federally, race and ethnicity that's recognized federally that they take on forms and stuff. So it just generated lists of those out, so I didn't have to go and manually put all those in.
Yep. Yeah, it is really great for something like that. Terry, I saw your hand raised and then lowered. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. So with the U state, like when it comes to my particular capstone, like do I need to do it all within app.js, or do I need to make another JS file?
So state has to be in the component that you are going to be using it, right? So on your page, when you load the combatants page, you would put state in that, and then it would be an array, and the array would have objects in it, and the object would be maybe image as one key and the path to the image, and then maybe title and the name of that character. And if that doesn't make sense, feel free to screen share and I can give you a little boost to get you going in the right direction.
Yeah, I think I might. Yeah, it's this one. So I do need to do it within here.
Inside, I would do it inside combatants. So here's what I'm going to recommend. I would do something like, you know what, because their names are, I would do something like this. I would say const, maybe let's call them characters equals use state. And this is a good example for everyone because it shows how we're putting our data into state. And let's just do Kenshi and Jade. And then down in here, we could do something that says characters dot map, go get each individual character, and for each character return an IMG with an SRC that uses this image path, but instead drop in the character's name and make the alt tag also the character name, and finally use a key of the character. And so now if I comment out this entire row of them, that first row, over commented. Well, I'll just show you. What we should see, use state is not defining, character is not defined. Use state we define here. And then character helps if I spell character right, huh? Okay. Now if we take a look, you in Chrome or Firefox?
Chrome.
And if we go to the combatants page, we'll see the first two characters are replicated because we did them here. So that means that if you add more characters to this list, it will automatically generate them out because of this loop.
Wait, so when I go here and it's supposed to have like a display like of either like yes or no. 'Cause I try to take try to you see all this mess. So is it possible to also should I also do all this inside of combatants too? Or should I just make it its own thing? Or maybe I should wait because this is more like database kind of maybe. I don't know.
Yes to all of the above. Um, this is kind of more what we're going for this check-in, which is like, hey, instead of having the images, repeated a bunch of times, instead move your data into a structure of arrays or of objects and then have React the loop over it to generate all of that out. What you're doing, though, just hanging out down here. That's all of this stuff.
Oh, and also with uh Scorpion having a link tag, is should I add the link tag up here too?
So stop asking good questions. I'm trying to think because we do start databases next week. Or do we do a week? I think we do a week of full stack and then a week of databases. Let me confirm that. I don't want to get you too far ahead and then be like, but we're going to delete all of that because it's going to come from the database instead. So I think you're fine to kind of pump the brakes here and wait until we do the databases, and then it will make more sense of how to integrate that at the character page. The other answer to that is we could let's just spend 5 minutes working on what you already have. So have you moved all of this over into your React yet?
Not yet.
Okay, so let's say I do something where I take this whole thing, I'm going to copy it, I'm going to put it into your SRC folder, and I'm just going to call it data.js. And this will change when we have the database working, but at the same time, we can take advantage of it while we have it. So we can do something like, hey, go to Scorpion, and we need to know what page we're on. So we are going to, well, let's just say this. We're going to say const character data, and we're going to import the characters data from your data.js. Then we are going to character data is, oh, you did it as an object, which was smart. Okay, so instead what we're going to do is we're going to say const availability and set availability equals uState started out as empty. And when the page first loads, find the matching data by going into the characters data and pulling out Scorpion. not spell that right?
No, it's Corpion.
Okay. Then set the availability from the matching data. And then finally, we can say here, let me go back into that data PS2. We can say if the availability on PS2 is yes, show the word yes. Otherwise, show the word no. And we're going to say if there is not availability, return div that says loading. Okay. Now, if we go over to Firefox.
It's Chrome. It's Chrome.
Chrome.
Yep.
We get an infinite loading. Great. What did I do? Oh, I didn't put this in. And console log characters data. Object. You know what I didn't do in the data? I didn't export it. And there you go.
Okay. Nice.
So that, take a couple minutes, review through that. Just to give you the rundown of what I did. First of all, we put the data in and we exported it, right? Then in Scorpion, we said, okay, and we'll make this dynamic once we get like into the database stuff. So you won't have to make the character page for every single character, but for now we pull that data in. We say, hey, that data is going to show to the user, so it's got to be in state. Then we say, hey, when the page loads, go into the data from that other file, go get Scorpion and set Scorpion's data into the availability. Then, based off of that availability, we come down here and say, if they're available on PS2, show the word yes, otherwise show no. Any
Alright.
questions?
Yeah. No.
Okay. I know that's going to take a minute. That was a little fast, but
Yeah. Is it possible to make like have like a certain color, like for example, like have like yes be green and have
yeah,
no
great
be
question.
red?
Yeah, we can do that right here. We can throw a style tag in. And because React is awesome, we can say if there is availability on the PS2, we're going to say color. And on the PS2, if it equals, or if there isn't, make the color green. Otherwise, make the color red.
Oh, that is so cool. Do I need to worry about the this right here? Or you know, maybe not. Okay. I just don't understand what this is doing.
App 44. Let's see if I broke that. App 44. Oh, it just, no, navbar and about. About.
Oh well, my belt is empty.
That's why. So if we just do this and just return an empty div. And fresh.
Oh, okay.
Now we got another problem on 53, but that's probably the same problem, and I'll let you worry about that one.
Yeah, it's probably is. Thanks, man.
All right, Joe, finish us out with your coding philosophy question. Better not be the damn trolley problem.
No. Do you, as a senior developer with many years of experience, see programming industry-wide trending towards like a homogeneous mix of high and mid-level languages? Probably not as much as low level because you got to interact with memory and stuff, but it kind of like Ryan was talking about TypeScript and how they're, that's moving towards like type languages, and mid-level languages are all type, most of them. It kind of seems like they're all kind of like meeting in the middle somewhere.
Um,
But there seems to be a trend for it.
yeah, I think it's interesting because when we think about other languages, when I think about other languages, I think, okay, let me think about Chinese, let me think about Spanish, let me think about, right? And there is probably a linguistic way to come up with a metric of how similar this language is to another language, right? And so we can say, all right, even though I don't know French, French is a Romance language, and so because of that, if I hear someone else speaking French, I probably wouldn't understand what they're saying, but I could pick up on certain words or phrases, right? Compared to Chinese, where if someone else was speaking Chinese, I probably I probably wouldn't be able to understand what they're saying because there's a bigger delta between the two languages. I don't think that that is the case in programming, right? So we call them different programming languages, but I really think about them more of dialects than I do of languages, right?
Or like grammar.
Or grammar, right? Like syntax is a little different, and the reason I like dialects a little bit more than grammar is because we have multiple dialects across America, right? And they call pop in one part of the country, soda in another, and everything Coke in another, even though they don't actually mean Coke, right? Like they mean any soda. And so that's how I like to think about it a little bit more of, oh, okay, Python doesn't have objects. Well, Python does have objects, but like the data structure that we call an object in JavaScript, Python calls a dictionary, right? And it's like, okay, but those are using key value pairs. They do the exact same thing, right? And so they're calling it pop, we're calling it soda kind of thing, And so when I think about languages kind of merging together, there are certainly times, and JavaScript is infamous for this, of a JavaScript framework coming up with a better way of writing the code, and then JavaScript being like, that's so dumb, why aren't we doing that ourselves and building it into the language, right? Spread operators are a great example of that from a lot of other programming languages. Are like, you've got this object and you want to put this object's data into another object. Why wouldn't you just have a way to spread out that data, right? And Python's done that for years, and JavaScript was like, oh, 3 periods. We don't use 3 periods for anything. That won't break anything. Let's just build that into the language. And so, I definitely see what imitation is a sincere form of flattery, right? I do see languages starting to merge together, or sharing ideas. But at the end of the day, if you put a gun to my head and said, you're only allowed to use Python at work, but all of your existing JavaScript code can run, you're just not allowed to write anything new in JavaScript, I'd be like, okay, like give me a week and I'll chug up to Python and that will be fine, right? So I don't know that we're ever going to get to the point where like there's one language to rule them all kind of thing. But I also don't think that like there are some legitimate things where Google got to go and they were like, wow, there's really no good language to solve this problem. It's actually going to be quicker for us to solve this problem at a language level so that all of our higher level developers can use it more efficiently. And Go was born and is pretty popular. And is it anywhere near as popular as Google or as JavaScript or Python? No, absolutely not. But because such a big company created it, it's now got enough weight behind it, right? So we kind of always want options, right? We teach React. Google has Angular. Vue.js is out there. They all have a following, but they've all three of them combined have pushed jQuery into obscurity and said, old man, time to move along kind of thing. So I don't know enough about working with low-level languages other than the fact that I never want to work with low-level languages. I don't enjoy being down at the computer science level. I like being up at the level of building things quickly. And that's not to knock that lower level. It's just not where I prefer to be.
It seems like especially with more of mid-level languages, probably more so, where maybe not one language to rule them all for all programmers, but like like web development has obviously been monopolized by JavaScript, and you have like
on the front end,
right,
on the back end, not so much.
A lot of the gaming industry is built in. You got Python and stuff, but a lot of it, if you're having like a big game that's rendering, it's usually in a C-based language, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and then you add, basically a rendering engine, right, is basically a framework. Right. And so like when you look at a bigger game studio, the artists don't know a single line of code. And even the people who are, working on the rendering engine, their whole job is to be an interface between artwork and physics and code and hardware. And so that's like a lot. And that is so much the thing that you hear about, like taking Unity engine as an example, that's now licensed out. So one gaming studio doesn't, they've realized that is such a big thing to do that they're like, oh, we can go to other gaming studios and say, we've made a really good engine. If you use ours, look at all the stuff that you won't have to do. It's cheaper to use ours than to build your own, and probably better, right? And so, yeah, I don't, I certainly see trends in the industry. When I got started, React didn't even exist. And I had a job interview where they said, this was a couple years ago, they were like, we're looking for someone with 10 years of React experience. And I messaged them and I said, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have a really hard time finding someone with 10 years of React experience. They're like, no, it's a really important thing for us. Like this role is going to be using React all of the time. We really need someone with a ton of experience with it. And I said, well, the creator himself of React won't be able to meet your requirements because React's only been around for 6 years or, whatever it was at the time. And then the HR person like, all right, jackass, like stop calling me out on a job description I didn't write kind of thing. But, so, but that happens, right? Of the industry moves on and we could all be using React in 10 years. React or JavaScript's been around for 30 years and continues to grow. Or we could be looking back at React and laughing and going, oh, remember the days that we were creating web apps, that wasn't all VR and AR based and using a completely different language and all of that kind of stuff. So like, I don't know that there's ever going to be the best programming language. There's never going to be a definitive answer there. But the reassuring part of that should be that that's all part of like continuous education as a developer and growing. Part of the reason why we did TypeScript yesterday, and that those core principles are always going to be translatable. So if you say tomorrow, I'm going to go learn Swift because I think iOS app development is the hot shit and that's where the industry's headed, well, they're still going to have for loops, they're still going to have functions, you're still going to have data structures, you're still going to have, right? Those concepts will be there even if it's not called the exact same thing.
Right. Yeah. And the industry is absolutely, gaming in particular, I think is going to start moving towards Apple Silicon based gaming because the architecture is all unified.
Yeah.
Which is I'm really excited for.
Yeah. The problem is what's their game engine called?
I'm thinking of the toolkit.
It's tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's not as powerful as something like Unity.
They just, well, yeah, right. They just released a new version of the gaming toolkit during WWDC 24. And there was, I don't know if it's going to be updated or it already was, but Swift and Xcode were updated as well.
Yes. Metal is what I'm thinking of.
Right, yes. Did they
Uh,
port over Assassin's Creed using Metal, or did they just port the Unity game using the toolkit? Do you know?
it's DirectX based, so I'm pretty sure it's now running on Metal because that DirectX ports were part of the toolkit.
The DirectX 11.
It's just on that page. I'm not a big gamer, so I don't know like a ton of it.
Yeah, I hope they keep pouring money into the game development space. They have like, not that we should be rooting for any company to monopolize an industry, but they have a real power to like, bridge a lot of gaps and make development in the games industry a lot better because you don't have to worry about different graphics cards and CPU architectures and everything, and trying to throw a general driver over everything versus like this is the chipset that's in all of these devices.
For sure. Yeah. All right. Class is over. Get out. I will see you guys all tomorrow.